Thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video.
So can you see that? I'll tell you what, I'm going to take a guess and so that you can't really see that properly. It's 20 to 12, it's the 4th of August. We're pretty much the middle of summer and pretty much the middle of the day. And I'm out on this blustery day with lots of sunshine to do one very specific type of landscape photography. So in last week's YouTube video, I said this. Ironically, I don't think I'll be doing any of that type of photography today because we just haven't really got the right sort of conditions, but yeah. And when I got home and I was editing that particular vlog, it made me realise next time I go out, if I can, if the conditions work for me, I really want to try and play around with my shutter speed a little bit more and try and get stuck into what I would see as quite a specific type of landscape photography, and it's being in sort of wide open vistas and actually working with the movement of the clouds. So yeah, it's long exposure photography, but it's very specific. When I think of long exposure photography, so for some reason, I think there's always got to be water in it. Of course there isn't. I think that's just because I photograph moving water quite a lot, but I always forget about this. Look at this, wide open vistas. I think I said a second ago, it's really windy today, so these clouds are moving quite quickly across the sky there. And this is, I think, a really fun type of landscape photography. And I think the images can actually be really profound and very impactful as well. I think I'd also like to try some monochrome photography as well. In fact, as I was driving here today, I was thinking, perhaps I'll spend the whole day, doing just black and white photography. And then I stumbled across some of this stuff down here, some heather. So this has changed my mind straight away. But yeah, I still might try and do some monochrome, if the compositions suit. But I'm going to get set up here now. I've got a really good idea for the first shot of the day. There we go, we are set up. Oh, that's so weird. I was just gonna say, I've already taken the photograph because the light is so changeable. And this is the first time I've had a little bit of light on the foreground in ages because there's only so much blue sky for the sun to come out beyond the clouds. But yeah, I wanted to photograph this foreground as it was illuminated, as you're seeing it now, just because it was helping the colors to pop, with the heather, the lovely sort of silvery colored rocks there, the golden grasses. So I think I've got it at the right time. Now, two things. Firstly, I've stuck the wide angle lens on because I really want to fill this frame with the foreground and get quite a lot of sky in. And that is because secondly, I'm doing this as a composite and I find this is so important here. So the same composition, exactly the same, but two completely different shutter speeds. So the first shutter speed is for the foreground and that is at 1/200th of a second. And compositionally, we've just got all this beautiful, vibrant heather down here, these grasses, like I said, and these silvery crags help to lead us off into the vista and ultimately into the sky. But the second photograph is for the sky, and I've stuck the 15 stop Nissi neutral density filter on to allow me to get a shutter speed of around about 3 minutes, and it looks class, let me tell you, on the LCD screen. It proper excites me, so much movement in these clouds because it's quite windy and the clouds are actually moving away from us and it looks really impactful, like I said earlier. That's the sort of the look that I'm trying to go for, the photograph that I'm trying to go for. But there's no way that I could use that 3 minute long exposure for the foreground, purely because it'd make everything blurry down here because of the wind. All these grasses are swaying all over the gaff, the header is being blown about in the wind, so all that would be blurry. So I'll have to take them 2 photographs, get the quick exposure and blend that long exposure sky in Photoshop in post-production. Should be fairly simple, but like I said, so important. So yeah, it was a remote shutter job. I had obviously the camera into bulb mode, and I actually just used, have I still got it up? Just the Nissi app, yeah, just so that I could calculate however long the exposure needed to be with a 15 stop ND filter on. Quality one to start. Right, so I've just fired off another long exposure. This particular shot is actually exactly the same settings as the previous image. 1/200th of a second for the foreground and around about a 3-minute long exposure for the sky, which is looking absolutely perfect for this particular shot. Now, like I said before, I really wanted to think about black and white photography today, and very specifically, black and white long exposures when you're dealing with the sky. And this is the type of photography, you know, that I really, I don't feel like I'm very good at it, and I wish that I was better at it, because I'm so taken by these sorts of photographs when I see them on Instagram or Twitter or you know, wherever. And it's one of my favourites, and I do find that strange how I don't sort of pursue it a little bit more, but I think I know what it is. It's because I'm not very deliberate about it. Of course, I'm not just going to get better at this overnight. I need to go out and actually do black and white long exposures, let's call it. Whereas I think a lot of the time, and I think this is bad, but I'll take a shot in the middle of the day in colour, as I usually do, and I won't really like the photograph, so I'll get it back into Lightroom and I'll think, I'll just convert it to a black and white. And I think that's rubbish, you know, because I do think black and white photography deserves more respect than that, in all honesty. It's a genre in its own right. And like I said, it's something that I want to get a little bit better at. But yeah, you learn when you're out in the field actually doing it, you know, rather than just thinking about it or doing that thing like I just said, where you just convert stuff into black and white for the fun of it. So that's what I'm doing with this shot anyway, and I'm feeling really good about this. Compositionally, we've got a nice clump of reeds here. Just checking on my long exposure. I don't want to overexpose this sky. Nice clump of reeds down here in the foreground, which is centralized. You can see here I'm in a portrait dimension orientation, and it works really well because we've got this dry stone wall leading us out into the peak and ultimately into the sky, and the light is like illuminating this dry stone wall from the left hand side, and I just do think this is going to look class in a black and white. The main thing here is definitely the long exposure. Any sort of blue sections of the sky up there are going to come out as black, and all of the clouds are going to be white. And we've got this class like long exposure again, where the clouds are moving towards us, you know. And yeah, it looks very, what's the word I used before, like impactful. And it really does. And I think this is what I love about this type of photography. So we've got about 3 seconds left on the Nissi app again. There we go. And we'll see how that turns out. Oh, it's looking decent on the back of the camera, let me tell you. You beauty. So the conditions are still looking fantastic for this type of black and white photography. So I'm going to get up to that peak that I've just photographed and maybe try and work with some of the foreground rocks or something like that. And before I do, I wanted to stop and say another huge thank you to today's video sponsor, which is of course Squarespace. If you don't know who they are, Squarespace is an all-in-one platform that you can go on to build your own website, and it's so easy. If this is a dream you've had for a while to make your own website, but perhaps you're intimidated by the prospect of it, trust me, have a go with Squarespace. You can get a free trial. I'll chat about that in a minute. So you've not really got anything to lose. And yeah, they've got loads of templates to get you started. It's really easy just to like edit your website and stuff like that. Absolutely fantastic. If down the line you're looking to sell things as well through Squarespace, they've got a fantastic or they've got various fantastic e-commerce options, which is what I use to sell things like prints, my 2023 calendar, which is now available to pre-order, and ebooks as well. You know, it doesn't have to just be physical products. Absolutely brilliant. I wouldn't be able to run my business without it. On top of that as well, something that I don't often mention is they've got a fantastic smartphone app, which I use when I'm sort of obviously away from my computer, where I can check on orders, make a few small edits to my website, anything like that. So yeah, like I said a second ago, go and get yourself a free trial and go to squarespace.com/Henry Turner and be sure to use the offer code Henry Turner at checkout for 10% off your first purchase. Quality. All right, let's get up to this peak. So I was just thinking then, that first photograph that I got, I remember I photographed a little bit of header and I said, oh, I won't shoot this in black and white because I want to retain the vibrance and the colour, and I think that was right. But now this is a bit experimental, just because I'm not as experienced in black and white photography, but I don't think it really is going to matter that much. You know, I still think this is something that could look really cool in as a monochrome photograph, you know. And one thing that I do know is that, all right, it's a black and white photograph, but colour does play an important part in black and white photography when it comes to post-production. And I think I can play around with the luminance of this header and things like that here in the foreground. Plus, in this whole scene, guys, we've been getting some really nice patches of light. So yeah, like I said, more experimental than anything. But you know what? I think it's going to look pretty cool. And again, like I said before, you can't improve on something unless you're willing to make mistakes and probably willing to make a bit of a wally of yourself as well. But there you go. So you probably saw a second ago, I was exploring around some of the rocks, you know, a bit further up this peak, and they're really, really nice, so full of texture and detail. And I just had to get one of them in the photograph. Now I wanted to get right up close to one with the wide angle lens, but I just couldn't figure it out. And then I stumbled across the heather and decided to do it like this. But again, we've got another sort of wide vista, which is nice. We've got some rocks on the right hand side, some rocks and the dry stone wall on the left hand side, and then it's just a nice undulation as we go deeper into the photograph. It's fantastic. And again, probably goes without saying, a good little chunk of the sky in, and we're doing a long exposure again. Same settings again, 1/200th of a second for the foreground because it's still really windy. And then we've got that 3-minute long exposure as the clouds move across the sky, and it's looking pretty decent on the LCD screen. I think actually above everything, what is going to make this photograph is actually those nice patches of light that we were getting as the sun was, you know, hiding behind clouds every now and again. I think that's going to look really cool, particularly in black and white as well. But I'll come over tears. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate your support. Please hit the thumbs up button. If you could spare just one quick second, it does proper help me out here on YouTube, and of course subscribe if you'd like to see more from me. And I'm going to be in Wales as well, so there'll be some videos from Wales, at least one. So yeah, hope you like this last photograph. Thanks again. Comment below about the topic of black and white. I'd love to hear from you, and I'll see you on the next adventure. Out!